Good morning, Longhorns. Welcome back. So today we're talking about the respiratory system, and as you know, the respiratory system is what we use to breathe in and out. So the main function is to pick up oxygen, from the air that we breathe, and releases carbon dioxide. As we exhale. So when we inhale, we're breathing in oxygen, and when we exhale, we are releasing carbon dioxide. All right? The major parts and organs, the nasal cavity, that is fancy way of saying your nose. So what it does is it filters, your nose filters by trapping large particles So that's the reason that you have hair inside your nose, so that it can capture large particles. And then when you get a lot of them and you blow your nose and like the boogers come out, that's what your boogers are. It's the stuff that should not be in your nose. It also moistens the air. And catches dust particles. So whenever you're dusting or cleaning, or you like go up into an attic or something and there's a lot of dust in there and you move the dust around and you start sneezing, that's what's happening. Your nose hairs are catching the dust, keeping it from going up into your respiratory system, and then trying to get rid of it by sneezing. Okay, so the trachea, epiglottis, they're actually two different organs. So we're going to start with the trachea. And the trachea is the airway from your nasal cavity to your lungs. Okay? So when you feel your throat, you have two essential organs in there underneath all the muscle. So when you feel like the front part of your throat and you have like those little ridges, that is your esophagus or your trachea. I forget which one's in front. And then, so one of them is in front and the other one's behind. The epiglottis covers the entrance to trachea when you eat and drink. Okay, so if you've ever like gotten water or food and like it went down the wrong hole, that's what's happening. The epiglottis was not able to cover your trachea soon enough, and so it went down into your respiratory system and you start coughing and choking to get it out. The bronchus is an extension from the trachea into the lungs. Bronchioles are, so like if the bronchus was, or the trachea was like the main pipe, let's say, then the bronchus would be a, like a path, okay? And then the bronchiole would be another path off of the bronchus. And what the bronchiole does, the reason that we go from one main pipe to two subpipes to even more subpipes is that air is made up of atoms. And in order for those atoms to enter our cells, they need a really, really small area for that to happen. And like the trachea is too big, the bronchus is too big, the bronchioles are still too big. But the bronchioles connect directly to the alveoli or the alveolus. Alveoli is plural, alveolus is singular. And so the alveoli or alveolus is actually the place where gas exchange occurs. So if you remember in the circulatory system, we were talking about the capillaries. The alveoli are made up of capillaries. And so it's the site where gas exchange occurs. Backtracking to the lungs are made up of the bronchus, bronchiole, alveoli, capillaries, and it's basically the area where oxygen enters blood. So when we inhale, we're inhaling oxygen, other atoms in our air, and as our muscles and organs go through their daily functions, they release carbon dioxide. And the carbon dioxide travels throughout the body, gets back to the lungs, and when you exhale, that's all of the carbon dioxide that your body has created that's leaving. And so the lungs are kind of like a storage area for the oxygen and the carbon dioxide so that it has a spot to go to so that it can enter your bloodstream and then exit your bloodstream. And the last part of this is our diaphragm. The diaphragm is a pretty important part because it's the primary muscle that's used in inhalation. And it separates the abdominal cavity from the thoracic cavity. So when you're looking at the human body, basically the point where the rib cage ends, that is considered the start of your abdomen. So like your stomach area, that's your abs. That's where you have your stomach, liver, intestines, and all that is separated from the thoracic cavity, which is where your rib cage is and your sternum. And inside the thoracic cavity is your heart and lungs. Okay? So now we're going to label the diagram. Hopefully it fits. Yeah, it fits for the most part. So we're going to start with the top and work our way down. So we have our nasal cavity. You are also able to breathe in through your mouth, and that's the oral cavity. So air goes in this way, or it can go up this way. In this section, in your nasal cavity, it actually is slightly better because you have the nose hairs to catch junk that shouldn't be in your lungs. But it also will moisten the air. So like whenever it's really, really cold and the air gets dry and like it burns when you breathe, it's because the air is dry and we're used to breathing in humidity. So then the air comes into here, into the trachea. Now in front of the trachea is the larynx and pharynx, which combined make up your voice box. So you have your voice box and the trachea. Okay. From the trachea, it branches into the two main bronchuses, I guess bronchi. So left and right. And then each of these little parts is a bronchiole. The cloud-like things are the alveoli. So let me get another color so that it's not all. So like this little cloud thing, that's the one alveolus. This one is another alveolus. This one is another alveolus. Like they look like clusters of grapes in your lungs, but they're like really, really tiny grapes. These like little things here that are on the ends or the edges, those actually your rib cage. And then the muscle that's right here, it's a flat muscle, a smooth muscle, is your diaphragm. And what happens is that the diaphragm will actually pull down, which will stretch out the lungs, kind of like when you stretch a balloon, which will allow oxygen and air to come in. Okay, at this point, I want you to go pause. Try to do your assignment as best you can. Remember that this is what I am taking as grades. However, I do want you to do your best on it. Again, remember, I'm not going to fail anybody. Mr. Verm and Miss Hunter aren't going to fail anybody. Like, our goal is not to get you, is to see what you understand, okay? Because we're not physically able to be there in class, and so we're just kind of trying to see, like, what we need to go back and re-explain, okay? So pause the video, go take your assignment, and then you can come back and check yourself after you've submitted it. All right, so I'm going to start at the top and go down. We have our nasal passage. We also have our oral cavity. We have the larynx, trachea. And I know that this was a bad picture, guys, and I couldn't find a better one before I gave this to y'all. Got the right bronchus, which is this part here, the right lung. Here we have the left bronchus. We have the bronchi. Oh no, bronchioles. And there's an I in there somewhere. Then we have the alveoli, the left lung, and last but not least, the diaphragm. Oh, can't even see that. Sorry. All right, for this part, the function of the respiratory system is for gas exchange, or exchange of gases. The nasal passage filters and traps particles in the air. In order for the lungs to expand, the diaphragm has to pull down. Alveoli is the cell and area where the gases leave the blood and enter the lungs. And then oxygen is what we breathe in as we breathe out carbon dioxide. Now, when I printed this out, I forgot to delete F. That was from the skeletal system. And like I said, I just forgot to delete it. On the one that I have online, you should not have that, I hope. If you do, it's cartilage. We already covered that one. So that's it for the respiratory system. If you have any questions, pop into our office hours. Remember, for science, it's 10 a.m. to noon every Monday through Friday. And just check it out. Have fun.